Unit 12 Organizational Development. 12.0 Introduction. In the previous unit, you were explained about the concept of organizational change. In the present unit, you will be explained about how organizations accept the forces of change and tend to develop itself in order to meet the demands of the society. Organizational development, OD, is also an important aspect from the viewpoint of globalization and other challenges. The present unit will discuss about the historical advents of the organizational development. It will also explain the various models related to organizational development. At the end of this unit, you will be explained about the various interventions related to organizational development. 12.2 Definition and relevance of organizational development. Acknowledging change is the first step towards change acceptance and, subsequently, organizational development. Organizational development, OD, could be seen as both an area for academic research and professional practice via social action. According to Bennis, organizational development is response to any change and a nuanced educated strategy that updates the beliefs, values, and structure of the organizations to allow them to better adapt to changing times. Further, Cummings and Woolley stated that OD is a systematic application of behavioral science knowledge to the planned development and reinforcement of organizational strategies, structures and processes for improving organizational effectiveness. Through the application of behavioral science concepts, OD aims to enhance the effectiveness of individuals in the organization and of the organization as a whole. French and Bell delineated 3 points to integrate the system of OD: I. Orientation, planning activities to achieve favorable and noticeable outcomes for the organization. 2. Target, the human aspect of the organization that is manifested in individual and social processes. 3. Setting, real-life organizations. Beer spoke of the following aims of OD: improving the compatibility between an organization's structure, strategy, processes, people, and culture, generating novel and creative solutions for the organization, and enabling organizations to develop self-renewing capability. 3 major factors contribute to the need for OD strategies. First, globalization is causing the international markets to change due to changes in governments, leadership, countries, and the markets themselves. Second, information technology is changing the ways in which information is utilized, how costs are calculated and how work is performed. Third, managerial innovations, as a result of globalization and information technology, have sped up the formation of new organizational forms. The relevance and responsiveness of OD has continued to enhance itself, as organizations are facing the challenge of functioning effectively under a complex, stressful, and constantly changing world. It plays a key role in assisting them to change themselves in an optimum manner. Besides organizations, OD is important to those who pursue a career in the field, such as a consultant in an organization or an external consultant with multiple organizations as clients. Next, OD is relevant to professionals such as managers and administrators as they play key roles in supervision of their department's performances. In fact, those at staff specialist level also offer suggestions and counseling to their supervisors and managers regarding new and upcoming practices. Finally, higher-level authorities, such as general managers and executives, can benefit from OD by learning how to encourage a more adaptable, resilient, and effective organization. 12.3.5 Historical background of OD. Typically, OD is explained as stemming from 5 major backgrounds: STEMS: I, laboratory training; 2, action research or survey feedback; 3, normative approaches; 4, quality of work life; and V, strategic change. 12.3.1 Laboratory Training STEM. Laboratory training background involved the innovations that applied insights gained in laboratory training to the complex world of organizations. In 1946, Kurt Lewin and colleagues conducted what is called T-group training at the National Training Laboratory, NTL. This involved small, unstructured groups introspecting their own behaviors, experiences, and group dynamics. This was a highly successful program and went on to receive Carnegie Foundation's support for its programs in 1948 and 1949, and it became a permanent program for NTL in the National Education Association. During the 1950s, there were more and more regional laboratories, and the T-group sessions expanded in time and scope into businesses and industries. Richard Beckard was the first to coin the term OD in 1958 and also conducted laboratory experiments at NTL. As T-group declined in use as intervention, the activities of T-group came to be known as team building, which is one of the most often used interventions today. 12.3.2 Action Research and Survey Feedback Background. The second movement or STEM in the evolution of OD was also pioneered by Kurt Lewin, making it a field in social science. In the 1940s, social scientists, besides Kurt Lewin, that initiated this movement were William White, John Collier, and Edith Hamilton. They showed that research for organizational improvement can only meet its goals if it is collaborated with action by consultant and organizational members. This STEM basically tries to understand what the organizational members feel before design and implementation of any OD or change is carried out. Hence, it was important for social scientists to collaborate with the organizational members for data collection related to the organization's processes, problem identification and problem solving. It resulted in two benefits. First, the organizational members could use the data on themselves to monitor and guide their behaviors and change. Second, the social scientists or OD practitioners could study and generate information that they could generalize to other organizations and settings. Survey research was the key in the data collection process, and Likert developed attitude surveys that used the famous 5-point Likert scale. The survey feedback includes data collection related to the organization and providing feedback so that they could identify problems and solve them. 12.3.3 Normative Background. From the previous stems, Likert identified, using survey feedback approach, which of the four categories an organization fell into: I. Exploitative authoritative system, 2. Benevolent authoritative system, 3. Consultative system, and 4. Participative system. The fourth category, that is, the participative system, was considered the ideal state for the organization, a benchmark or norm that the members could achieve by drawing comparisons and building bridges between the current organizational setting and the ideal organization. The participative group system consisted of high involvement and participation of organizational members in decision-making. Blake, Mouton and Bidwell developed a managerial grid to demonstrate organizational effectiveness, which involved descriptions of a member's style according to their concern for production, such as accomplishing relevant tasks, quality decision-making, and people, such as good working conditions, fair salary structure. They proposed a managerial style with the highest levels of effectiveness in tackling barriers in communication and achieving excellence. 12.3.4 Productivity and Quality of Work-Life Background. This STEM is founded on the research by Eric Trist and colleagues at the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, London, that targeted amalgamation of people and technology. The quality of work-life programs comprised both the unions and management coming together to discuss work designs and generating designs that enabled more discretion for employees, varieties in assignments and constructive feedback. These programs enabled the formation of work groups that could self-manage. QWL also referred to techniques that improved work through enrichment of jobs, labor management committees, and self-managing teams. This approach looked at the integration of human aspects of the organization and physical and technical work aspects. They led to greater productivity and employee satisfaction. 12.3.5 Strategic Change Background. As the technological, social, and political environments of the organization became more complex and interlaced, the need for planned change process was observed at the system level. This was pioneered by social scientists such as Richard Beckhardt, Eric Trist, and Ken Bamford that believed that organizations comprise of both technical and social elements that interact with each other and may cause change in each other. This stern systematizes the organization's vision, culture, and environment. The underlying assumption here is that organizational productivity and employee satisfaction would increase if all the three factors were aligned. 12.4 Models of OD. Organizational change is approached via two main theories, one that relates to why and how change occurs, change process theory, and another that concerns what behaviors or action can cause and direct change, implementation theory. Change process theories are developed mainly through the contributions of academics, while implementation theory models have major contributions of practitioners. 12.4.1 The three-step model of change. For Kurt Lewin, human behavior could be looked at as many active forces working in opposition to each other. The underlying assumption of the three-step model is that behavior can be changed or directed in a favorable direction by making a shift in the balance of these active forces. In organizations, forces such as incentives and group expectations could work in opposition to each other. While the former is a driving force, the latter is the restraining force. According to the model, change could be successfully implemented in three stages: 1. Unfreezing, 2. Change, and 3. Refreezing. Unfreezing. The organization has its own norms and established ways of working. So, the first step would be to loosen those rigid practices by reducing the forces that maintain them. The forces that direct employee behaviors away from rigid practices should be increased simultaneously. This stage would prepare the organizational members to be prepared for the upcoming change. Three processes can accomplish this step: disconfirmation, induction of anxiety or guilt, and creation of psychological safety. Disconfirming or simply not confirming the validity of the existing standards may create some dissatisfaction, leading to perceiving a need for change. Inducing guilt and anxiety about current standards by highlighting and talking about the gaps between existing processes and ideal processes would motivate individuals to desire a change. Finally, the creation of psychological safety is about assuring the personnel that potential change would not threaten their positions or come at a psychological cost. 2. Change forward/transition. This stage involves the actual introduction and implementation of the change. Here, we move towards the new balance that was to be achieved. One would expect changes at three levels. First, at the individual level, people's behaviors would change and they could develop or demonstrate new skills. Second, at the structural level, there would be changes in how the organization works, hierarchies, reporting relationships, and reward management. And thirdly, at the interpersonal level, we should see stronger interpersonal trust and more openness with fewer conflicts. The processes explained in the first stage would also be helpful if continued during change. 3. Refreezing. This is the final stage where the agent of change has to be integrated into the organization. The objective is to obtain a balanced equilibrium where the change is a part of the organizational norms and values. Hence, it is important to make efforts at the reinforcement of the new changes in organizational processes and management systems. 12.4.2 Action Research Model. Just like the three-step model of change, the Action Research Model was introduced by Kurt Lewin in 1946. This model is a part of the action research approach that focuses on solving problems through collaborative efforts between the agent of change or researcher and the target or client. In addition to solving problems, the approach also focuses on information generation. Traditionally, the underlying assumption of action research is that the cycles of knowledge gathering and implementation of actionable solutions can solve organizational problems, when the members of the institution are actively engaged in this cyclic process. Another assumption is that besides being solutions to organizational problems, the outcomes of knowledge in action are required to prepare for intended and unintended consequences. The action research model comprises 7 main steps, each forming a cycle of planning, action and knowledge gathering. I. Problem identification. Entry. This step begins when it is recognized that one or more problems exist in the organization. The problem is usually identified by an executive or someone of higher authority in the organization and ideally is resolved with the assistance of a practitioner of organizational development. Consultation with a behavioral science expert. Contracting at this step, the expert recruited could be an organizational development (OD) practitioner, as discussed above. The said expert would design a blueprint to plan and implement change in the organization in a way that enables an open and cooperative relationship. 3. Data gathering and preliminary diagnosis. Diagnosis. This step is completed by the OD practitioners in conjunction with the organizational members. The idea is to gather appropriate and complete information and analyze the same to identify the root cause of the presenting problem. The OD practitioner could use tools such as observation, interviews, performance data and questionnaires for their data collection and analysis. 4. Feedback to key client or group. Feedback. This stage reflects the collaborative nature of the action research approach. Following the information gathering, the OD practitioner gives feedback based on the diagnostic findings in a team meeting. The aim is to familiarize and develop a deeper understanding of the organization's or department's strengths and weaknesses. It is to be noted that while the process requires openness, it has to be balanced with a level of confidentiality related to sensitive data. It is also important to recognize if the organization is ready for the suggested changes. V. Joint diagnosis of the problem. Planning change. Once the feedback is generated, the OD practitioner and organization members make a joint effort to identify the root cause of the issue. Diagnosis could be jeopardized if there are communication gaps during data gathering. Because misdiagnosis could sabotage the change process or invite resistance to change, this is a critical stage. 6. Joint action planning. Before the final phase of taking action, there needs to be a joint agreement on the actions that would be taken to intervene and introduce desired changes. Several factors influence the specific actions that the OD practitioner and organizational members agree upon. For example, diagnosed problem, organization culture and the nature of planned action. 7. Action, intervention. The actions planned during the previous phase are implemented here. This could be at the individual level, such as changing job roles and descriptions, at group level, such as cultural changes or changes of the team behavior, and at the overall organization level, such as changes in the vision and mission of the organization. 12.4.3 The appreciative inquiry model. While action research approach is a problem-focused approach to organizational development, the appreciative inquiry model adopts a positive approach. It utilized narrative approaches to OD, for example, storytelling, for generating theories, ideas, and blueprint for change. The first underlying assumption in this model is that every individual has certain expectations and goals that they keep in mind while communicating or behaving. Having positive expectations related to the organization can enable the behavior required to realize one's beliefs. The model is grounded in the belief that new ideas are key to enforce change and that the action research model in its traditional form cannot generate those ideas. The 4D model is most often used to describe the appreciative inquiry approach. The 4D model describes organizational change as an outcome of a cyclic process beginning that comprises discovery, dream, design and delivery, or destiny. Discovery. At the discovery stage, participants' descriptions, reflections and discussions are used in inquiring what the focus should be. Participants may be asked about instances where they thought that customers' satisfaction was apparent in opposition to customers' dissatisfaction when inquiry is about improving customer satisfaction. At its core, this stage is about appreciating what the organization already has. 2. Dream. Following discovery, the organizational members gather to visualize what the organization's ideal state would be after the change. All organizational members try to identify common dreams, goals and aspirations. This is a future-oriented stage where the team envisions the ideal state. 3. Design. The dream is transitioned into a concrete design via realistic proposals that could bridge the gap between the current and new organizational states. The questions to be asked are how the ideas could be put into practice and who all will lead the team for change. 4. Delivery, or destiny. At this stage the organizational members take necessary actions in accordance with the design statements, evaluate the outcomes of their behaviors, and keep making constant readjustments to the behaviors so that the organization can head towards the ideal state. Then the new state is reviewed and, hence, the cycle continues. 12.4.4 The general model of planned change. Cummings and Woolley integrated the three models discussed above to come up with the general model to describe the OD consultation process, that is, the general model of planned change. It consolidates the problem-solving approach but also takes into perspective the importance of understanding and utilizing the best practices that exist in the organization already. The planned change can be obtained via 4 stages or sets of activities: entering and contraction, diagnosis and feedback, planning and implementation, and evaluation and institutionalization. Entering and contracting. The first stage comprises the first set of activities that the organization must engage in before the process of change begins. These help in developing a deeper understanding of the requirement for change and what needs to be changed. By entering the organization, it is meant that activities such as data gathering for problem identification, joint discussions, setting of expectations, and resource management must be carried out. After these activities between the organization members, a contract must be generated that spells out the actions for change, resources that will be utilized, and the roles of the organization members and OD practitioner. Several barriers may arise at this stage that disable moving forward to the next stage. First, members may disagree on the need for change. Second, limitations related to resources may be recognized. Finally, it may be recognized that there are other more feasible alternatives for the planned change. It is important to keep in mind cultural and contextual factors during this stage, especially if the process occurs in an international or non-traditional setting. Diagnosis and feedback. At this stage, effort is made to understand the current state of the organization, such as their best practices and root causes of problems, so that the best model and outline for the plan of change could be identified. This is the key stage in the process of planned change. The diagnosis models analyzes issues at three levels. At the organizational level, most complicated analyses of the total system are involved. At the group level, issues are related to the effectiveness of the department and the group, and at the individual level, there are issues that are related to job design and performance. The model involves convergent thinking to derive the best model for diagnosis, data collection in relation to the current organizational culture and processes, data analysis and feedback. 3. Planning and implementing change. Based on the results from the diagnosis, the organization members and the OD practitioner design a workable plan, or interventions, to bring about the desired changes and realize the organization's vision. During this stage, it is important to keep in mind various questions. For example, how ready is the organization for the said change? What is the current capability of the organization and its members? How is the power distributed within the organization? The diagnosis will point to one of four main types of interventions that would be detailed in the next header. A. Interventions related to human processes at the individual, group, or organizational levels. B. Interventions related to organizational structure. C. Interventions related to human interventions that improve job performance and employee well-being. D. Interventions related to strategy that manage the relationship between the internal structure of the organization and its external climate as well as processes crucial for effective business. 4. Evaluation and institutionalizing change. At the final stage, the effects of intervention are evaluated and the change is managed persistently. This is also a feedback stage, so that according to the results of the evaluation, it is determined whether the set of changes would be continued as they are, updated, or suspended altogether. To stabilize or institutionalize the new changes, the organization may use several reinforcement techniques such as rewards, training and feedback. 12.5 OD interventions. Organizational development or OD interventions are programs that are developed through planning to solve organizational problems or move towards an organizational goal. From these planned programs, it is expected that the functioning at work would be impacted positively and improve interpersonal professional relationships. Problems identified during diagnosis, such as work performance, skills and performance, job processes, work motivation, employee retention and technology are targeted for resolution via OD interventions. When there is a need for change, need arises for interventions. Interventions help organizations transition from their current state to an ideal one, modify the organizational culture, and improve work practices. The interventions work at the individual level, group level and organization level, and can be broadly categorized into four types. 12.5.1 Human Processes Intervention. Human Processes Intervention has special focus on the people of the organization and the processes by which they accomplish the vision and goals of the organization. Processes such as communication, decision-making in teams, problem-solving, and leadership are parts of this intervention. They are rooted in psychological and socio-psychological fields where social context, group dynamics, and social relations are key elements. The underlying assumption here that fulfilled members of the organization would lead to organizational effectiveness. The category includes three interventions that work at the individual and group levels: process consultation, third-party intervention, and team building. Further, three interventions work at the system forward/organizational level: organization confrontation meeting, intergroup relations and large group interventions. 12.5.1.1 Process consultation. A process consultant focuses on the group dynamic and interpersonal relationship within the organization. Their objective is to guide members so they could get the skills required to solve their own problems. They assist in the diagnosis of work functioning and come up with customized solutions to the diagnosed issues. Process consultants often address issues such as lack of communication or miscommunication, dysfunctional and ineffective norms. These are generally used at the group level. 12.5.1.2 Third-party intervention. This is particularly aimed at the issue of interpersonal professional relations and can be considered a form of the previous intervention. Conflicts and disputes are a part of the organization's dynamics. However, when they become extreme and start affecting work functioning, a third-party intervener would be beneficial for resolving them. They may use methods such as bargaining, reconciliation, and group problem solving. These may be done at both individual and group level. 12.5.1.3 Team building. Team building is important especially as more and more tasks in an organization are assigned to teams. So when a team is having difficulty working together on a task where they need to work together, intervention becomes crucial. Team building could help in diagnosing the interpersonal processes and derive solutions to the identified issues. It goes deep into the task itself, the role of each member, resources required, and what strategies are being used in the tasks. Hence, it works at the group level, helping them improve their effectiveness at team assignments. 12.5.1.4 Organization confrontation meeting. Here, the organization members diagnose problems, set actionable targets, and work collaboratively on the issues. This is especially helpful when the organization is collectively experiencing stress and immediate problem solving is required. 12.5.1.5 Intergroup relations. This intervention is aimed at enhancing the intergroup or interdepartmental relations in the organization. Typically, a consultant sits with two groups having conflicts and identifies the cause of the conflicts to derive appropriate solutions. 12.5.1.6 Large group interventions. These interventions utilize meetings to create and spread awareness regarding organizational problems as ideas from a large number and variety of stakeholders put in their ideas and comments. They generally meet for clarification of points, develop new norms and vision, and problem solving at the organizational level. 12.5.2 Technostructural interventions. These interventions focus on the organization's technical aspects, such as job design and task methods, and its structure, for example the organization's hierarchy, division of work. Technostructural interventions broadly follow the principles of sociology, psychology, and engineering. The focus is on how to improve job productivity and employee fulfillment, as they believe that proper design and structure would lead to increased organizational effectiveness. 12.5.2.1 Structural design. This technostructural intervention has to do with the division of work and how tasks are specialized. The intervening consultant pushes to move the organizational structure to flexible and integrative ways of dividing its overall work, for example based on process, customer and network. 12.5.2.2 Downsizing. Many organizations use downsizing, that is, laying off personnel, redesigning the organization, and outsourcing work, to minimize costs and bureaucracy. 12.5.2.3 Reengineering. In this intervention, a radical redesign of the organization and its processes can enhance collaboration of various tasks. Better collaboration leads to faster response and enhanced task performance. 12.5.3 Human resource management interventions. These interventions include activities such as goal setting, rewarding, career planning and management, and performance appraisal to support the people in the organization. Human resources management interventions are based on work relations, reward systems, employee selection, and performance appraisal. The underlying assumption is that when people are integrated into the organization, it leads to improved organizational effectiveness. 12.5.3.1 Goal setting. This intervention tries to find a common ground between personal goals and institute's goals. It involves setting goals that are challenging and clearly defined. The progress is periodically reviewed and updated. 12.5.3.2 Performance appraisal. This intervention is used often to generate and give performance-related feedback to employees and teams. It evaluates people's strengths, weaknesses and achievements. 12.5.3.3 Reward systems. In this, the organization uses rewards in the form of salary hike, promotions, and perks, to improve job satisfaction and performance. 12.5.4 Strategic interventions. These interventions are a bridge between the internal workings of a company to its external environment so that it could transform itself to keep up with changing times. It relies on the principles of economics, anthropology, strategic management and organization theory. 12.5.4.1 Integrated strategic change. This intervention is based on the belief that change needs to be enforced at business strategies and systems of the organization at the same time to respond to internal and external disturbances. 12.5.4.2 Culture change. The idea of this intervention is to develop a stronger organization culture which includes belief systems, norms, values, as well as behavior. A strong organizational culture is likely to make individuals feel an affiliation and, as a consequence, commitment to their organization. 12.5.4.3 Mergers and acquisitions. When it makes sense, multiple organizations can merge together to generate a new, bigger entity, or a stronger organization can acquire a smaller one that is struggling in some areas. It is important to discuss leadership, cultural, financial, and strategic changes post-merger or acquisition in advance to assure a smoother transition. 12.5.4.4 Self-designing organizations. This type of intervention provides support for continuous change in the organization by enabling it to modify itself at a fundamental level. A large number of stakeholders set directions for strategic change and the organization learns to implement the changes itself. 12.6 Let us sum up. By now you might be clear with the concept of organizational development. It can be summed up from the above unit that OD is an inevitable process which is required for any country to prosper. You were explained about the definition and relevance of the OD in the beginning of the chapter, which was followed by the historical background and models of OD. At the end of the unit, various interventions of OD were also discussed.